Stalker Shadows of Chernobyl is considered a cult classic by many. Cult classic usually refers to a game that isn't a household name but has an insane following. Shadows of Chernobyl has hundreds of mods and thousands of memes. It has solidified itself in history as one of the best horror games. These days, I think a lot more people know about the Stalker series. There's 3 of them, and this is because of big-time YouTubers and media outlets always covering it. But at the time of Shadow of Chernobyl's release, I had no idea what it was. It stood out to me when it was on the shelves. It was one of the last physical games I ever recall seeing in a store that wasn't something made by EA or Blizzard. The cover itself had me sold. I was curious. I needed to find out what this game was all about, especially with Chernobyl in the title. It turned out to be a perfect game for me. It had everything I like within a shooter, and the horror elements were stuff that I could tolerate. Instead of it being a haunted house simulator where you have no gun and you're just running from the monsters, it went for a more atmospheric horror with a perfected sense of dread. It wasn't until I got Steam that I discovered that many people love this game, but even with all its publicity, I still meet people who have never played it. Even if I have a small subscriber base, thank you for getting me to 100 by the way, I want to make sure that that small number knows that Stalker exists. This is the CD-ROM Fossil Halloween special, showcasing a game that deserves everyone's attention. The Stalker series was developed by the Ukrainian company GCSC Game World. The first game was released in 2007. I have a soft spot for Eastern European developers. Their games can be ambitious, unique, and sometimes really weird. Stalker at times is all 3. Of course, that part of the world isn't perfect, as I found out with Mob Enforcer, but hey, no one really is. Shadows of Chernobyl is based on a movie, which was based on a book. I could go over the similarities of these 3 works, but I don't think it'll affect gameplay for you whatsoever. Now, if you're a Tartatsky fan or just love Roadside Picnic, there's some references you can pick up on. I won't really go through them because I'll leave them for the fans to find. Just if you're playing Shadows of Chernobyl, keep an eye out. You'll see some similarities. The story is rather simple. After the Chernobyl meltdown, the entire area was quarantined off. This area is referred to as a zone. Many different factions populate the zone with their own goals in mind. Some want to retrieve artifacts for research or wealth. Some just want to rob the place of anything valuable. Most importantly, most people want to get to the center of the zone, the source of the meltdown. Rumor has it that there's a room in the center that grants wishes. Now that's appealing. You play as a stalker who was saved from the brink of death, you've got a PDA that says kill Strelok, and you have amnesia. Amnesia was fairly common in the mid-2000s in video games, so I'm not really shocked at that. The best thing about Stalker is the graphics and atmosphere. The landscape is amazing being from 2007. My favorite part about the atmosphere is that the horror is very subtle. Lightning storms, screams in the backgrounds, and dark interiors. It isn't a cheap jump scare fest. It all feels very natural for the most part. But there are some jump scares in this game, but they're not what you would expect in terms of jump scares. It's hard to explain. You'll see them when you see them. The horror element is honestly bolstered up by my upbringing. No, I didn't fight mutant dogs or grow up near a chemical plant, but I did grow up in a post-industrial, post-NAFTA, post-several recessions type area. An area that got ignored once major roads were built and expanded. Ever seen Cars? Never mind. The point is, because I see rundown rural areas every time I leave the house, the beginning of the game is very believable. I can see this sort of thing happening and understand the spook factor. It's like watching the spelunkers on YouTube. Sure, I've never seen anything super spooky, but traveling around ghost towns in real life is very eerie. It isn't a fake attraction. People used to live there, businesses used to thrive, and now it's just gone. And the game captures that emotion of dread and what was, and it's very convincing. It's unsettling, it's very bleak, it's perfected in this game. This lingering feeling of dread mixed with the graphics creates a genuine horror experience. The lighting also adds to the spookiness. Yeah, look at this area. It's terrifying. I can't wait to get out of here. This level of lighting isn't found in even some of the bigger budget releases today. The stalkers playing guitar around campfires is such a nice subtle touch to realism and how the zone would look like in real life. Even some of the dialogue is very true to what someone would actually say. It doesn't come off as pretentious or too action movie-ish. It all feels very real. I feel like these are real people. It's amazing. The graphics and atmospheres while this game is still being talked about today. Anytime I hear someone talk about Stalker, it's man, it looks gorgeous and it's a little spoopy. Speaking of graphics, I'm currently playing this on a Windows 7 64-bit machine using the original CD-ROM. The graphics card in this machine is a GTX 550. There's no patches, and it's the original retail version. This game looks amazing. No mods or anything applied. Use some mods, and you can make this game look gorgeous. So, You know how I said that the graphics and atmosphere is why this game's talked about? No one really talks about the gameplay. What makes Stalker good for some and really bad for others is the gameplay. This will make or break whether or not you will like this game. It is the deciding factor. There's just no way to put it. The gameplay it's polarizing. Put simply, this game will kick you in the tail over and over again. You start with one of the worst weapons in the game. It doesn't take much to kill you in the early game, and you don't really start with a whole lot of med kits. For newbies, the gunplay is unbelievably hard to grasp. Even with the best weapons in the game, the ranges, spray patterns, and recoil can be hard to understand. You don't get really a lot of feedback if you hit someone or not, so you kind of have to hope that you saw a blood splatter. Even then, that might not tell you if you actually hit them. It's really not the greatest part of the game. There's so much loot, and most of it's useless. There's a durability mechanic to weapons, but there isn't many unique or hard-to-find weapons, so I've never really considered it a problem. There is mods that adds weapon repair kits, but it's really not needed. Then you got the anomalies. Radiation from the Chernobyl meltdown left behind weird reactions in the environment. They're everywhere, and you have a way of detecting them. The most useless of these is the bolt. Using your eyes, you can see the pattern of anomalies. Very rarely do I need to actually use the bolt. In fact, I don't know if I ever used it after I pulled it out to show the video. I feel like it was just a reference to the movie. In some of these anomalies, you can find artifacts, which, when equipped, boosts some stats while lowers others. But don't go thinking this is an RPG, because it isn't. Just some items have effects on your character, Honestly, what keeps me from hating the gameplay is the intensity. 1 minute you are running and gunning from the fast monsters. The next, you are methodically shooting from behind cover, waiting for the next moment to close the gap between you and your enemy. It's all very satisfying when you finally win a gunfight, and very infuriating when you don't. The action is amazing when it works, and it only really works when you're not outnumbered 30-1. Passing stalkers will help you in some areas, and their assistance is quite useful. Towards the end of the game, though, it's just you with little cover and a million enemies. Gameplay is what's going to make you like or hate this game. I've said it already, but I'm just going to make it clear. Gameplay is not the best. Perhaps my favorite part of the gameplay is the map itself. I've always been a huge fan of semi-open world games, and this game embodies my perfect idea of that. In fact, both Chernobyl and Pripyat have some of my favorite maps in video games. While you can go wherever you want, it is still guided. It's like a tour of sorts. Instead of backtracking over and over again like most open world games, you mainly just go forward, only returning to previous NPCs to turn in quests. I was excited for open world games when they first became trendy, like with Fallout 3 and Red Dead Redemption, but then they just made me exhausted in the past 5 years or so. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 was the nail in the coffin. You'd activate a mission in one spot just to have to drive to the other side of the map to do the first objective. And then, there's really nothing around. There's nothing to really go into or see. It's just kind of like a prop. Stalker has maps I enjoy. However, I feel like this was due to budget limitations. With Stalker 2 on the horizon, I feel like they'll go with a more popular idea of what open world is, and that kind of scares me. See, Stalker's limited maps are filled with a lot of things to see and do. Meanwhile, Ghost Recon Wildlands is full of just trees, rocks, and dirt. Stalker's an amazing game, and I'll stop trying to sell it. And I keep saying Stalker when this video is about Shadows of Chernobyl because I kind of lump Chernobyl and Pripyat together. I also sort of forget Clear Sky exists. It's not a bad game, it's just weird. If you don't know, Chernobyl was first, Clear Sky was second, and Pripyat was the last. Stalker 2 is in the works, as I mentioned before, and it's such a weird title. Why not call it Stalker Cheeky Breeky or something? I don't know. All the other ones had subtitles. Why is this one just 2? What's it a sequel of? The first game, Clear Sky, Pripyat? I mean, it tells you probably on their website, but the point is, the naming seems kind of dumb. I'd say play them all, but if you're only going to play one, I'd give you 2 options. If you want to play where it all started, I would play Shadows of Chernobyl. If you want to play with the most content, most mechanics, and arguably the best game, especially with mods, I'd say go with Pripyat. I would avoid Clear Sky unless you're a Stalker fan. It's not the same, it's very weird, and it's really hard. I mean, that's why I like it, but I don't know, I'll leave that up to you. Maybe I'll review the others soon, who knows. Regardless, Stalker Shadows of Chernobyl holds a special place in my heart, and it was the perfect game to revisit this October. I'm Elijah Moon Blackwell, CD-ROM Fossil. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for 100 subscribers, and have a nice, safe Spooktober October. Spooktober October. Yeah, whatever. I'm going to go eat some candy.